Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to go ahead and start 1 minute earlier than stated. This meeting is being recorded. I want to thank you all for coming and being able to share your time. We are very excited to have Nadine Maher, MED, with us now. Nadine is New York State certified. She's a general and special education teacher and a board certified behavioral analyst with an extensive experience working with our young children and their families. She received her Master of Education degree in early childhood education with a specialization in teaching children with autism and intellectual disabilities from the Teachers College of Columbia University. And she became a board certified specialist. Now, with that being said, she does consult in various school settings and supports teachers. And that's why she gave of herself today to be with us, because we know we have many parents who need help with toileting. With that being said, again, this is being recorded. We do have translations for Mandarin, Spanish, and Bangla. With that being said, Mandarin interpreters, you now have the floor to give your instructions.
Hi, good afternoon. This is a Mandarin interpreter Jian Song. I'm not going to do my announcement. 大家好，中文翻译，请拨打347-966-4114，然后拨井号键。然后拨348-565-795，然后加井号。我重复一遍。请拨打347-966-4114，然后 ID 号码是348-565-795，然后加井号键。如果您想收听中文的语音，同时呢又观看视频会议，就请大家把电脑的语音和音量设置为静音状态，用中文用电话拨打中文普通话热线347-966-4114，ID 号码是348-565-795，后面加井号。谢谢。The Mandarin announcement is done. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Spanish interpreters, you now have the floor to give your instructions.
Sí, buenas. Esta es para las, the following announcement will be in Spanish. Esto es para las personas que necesitan interpretación en español. Tienen que llamar desde otro dispositivo al número de teléfono 347-966-4114. Luego van a introducir el número de identificación de la llamada, que es 600-786-167, signo de números. Repito, el número de teléfono es 347-966-4114. con el número de identificación de llamada 600-786-167, signo de número. Una vez que estén en la llamada, por favor, desactiven el micrófono o denle a mute. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bangla, you now have the floor to give your instructions.
Thank you. The following message will be for the Bengali participant. আপনারা যারা আজকে মিটিংটি শুনছেন তারা যদি জুমের পাশাপাশি মিটিংটি বাংলায় শুনতে চান সেক্ষেত্রে আপনাদের ফোন থেকে ডায়াল করবেন 347-966-4114। নাম্বারটি আবারও বলছি 47-966-4114 এবং কনফারেন্স আইডি চাইলে দিতে হবে 662-917-931#। কনফারেন্স আইডিটা আবারও বলছি 662-917-931#। আপনাদের যদি আবারও দেখতে চান সেক্ষেত্রে মেসেজে দেওয়া আছে, এই নাম্বারটিতে আপনারা ডায়াল করলে বাংলা লাইনে ঢুকতে পারবেন। যদি কোনো প্রশ্ন থাকে আমাদের মাধ্যমে প্রশ্নটি করতে পারবেন, প্রশ্ন যদি না থাকে অনুগ্রহ করে মিউট করে রাখবেন। ধন্যবাদ। থ্যাংক ইউ।
Thank you so very much. With that being said, we will now turn the floor over to Ms. Nadine Maher, our presenter for today. Nadine, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you so much.
Muy bien, muchísimas gracias.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here and really hope everyone can walk away today with some concrete hands-on strategies that you can start implementing right away. Thank you so much for the introduction, and we will get right in. We'll be taking questions at the end, so feel free to ask your questions. I'll definitely try my best to get to all of them at the end, and I will be emailing these
You may have muted
slides.
yourself, Nadine.
Oh. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, I'm happy to be here. Just wanted to say thank you for the introduction. I will be sending these slides out so that they can be emailed out to everybody. So you can definitely get a copy of them or any other resources I mention here. And my goal is for everyone to walk away with a few tricks that they can start using this evening, if possible. This presentation is really for anybody who's thinking about starting toilet training with their child or adolescent, or maybe you've already started and could use some tips on just some troubleshooting or some hiccups along the way. So a lot of these strategies can be modified for different ages. And so happy to answer any questions that are more specific to your child, but we'll be going through more of a general plan that you can follow. Okay. So why do we toilet train? Of course, toilet training increases independence, right? And that's a goal that we probably all have for our children, whether you're a teacher or a parent. We know that the process of toilet training and learning how to use the bathroom, wash our hands, and take care of ourselves leads to more independence as we get older. The process of toilet training also teaches a lot of self-help skills. So not only eliminating in the bathroom, but also dressing, undressing, hand washing, of course, our language skills, right? Learning how to tell others that we need the bathroom and using it by ourselves. So these are all skills that come along with the toilet training process that are important. And of course, many families are spending a lot of time and energy and of course resources on diapers. And so this can be a big relief for a lot of families when your children become toilet trained and we no longer have to use a lot of resources for diapers and wipes and things like that. So hopefully, again, we can walk away with some tips today to kind of help all of these areas. So I'll go over very quickly what you might read as the traditional approach, right? So if you Google toilet training, you might hear things like, you know, your child will tell you when they're ready. You might read a few books to them, show them how to go to the bathroom. Maybe siblings or family members can do this at home. Expose your child to the potty or to the toilet and kind of wait and see. Right. And we know that this approach usually will not work for our children with special needs. So whether that's autism or attention issues or language delay, a lot of times these kinds of approaches are not specific enough and not individualized enough. So today we'll be talking about more of a systematic approach that you can use with your children so that we make sure these skills are being learned and that there's enough opportunity to practice. Again, if you Google the signs of readiness, right? How do you know if a child is ready for toileting? You might read things like that they show some discomfort when their diaper is soiled. So they might come tell you, or they might try to take off their diaper if they're uncomfortable. That's definitely one sign of awareness. Your child stays dry for 60 to 90 minutes at a time. Again, these are the main signs. There are many others. A child appears to know when they're about to eliminate, right? So they might hide behind a couch, or there might be a change in facial expression or posture when they are about to have a bowel movement or urinate in their diaper. So these are some behavioral signs you might see. Children are showing interest in the potty or the bathroom. So there's that natural interest and they might be curious what's going on in there, might want to observe or join their siblings when they're using the bathroom, or they might tell you when their diaper is soiled. So again, these are some main signs of readiness. And in neurotypical children, we might see these signs appear anywhere between 18 and 24 months of age, right? So anywhere from that 1.5 to 2 years of age, sometimes a little bit later than that. However, again, if you're not seeing these signs, it doesn't mean we wait. Okay, so this is a big takeaway I'd like to bring up. Many children with developmental delays may not show any of these signs until they're much older, even 9 or 10 years old. So what's important is that we teach toilet training like it's a skill, just like you would teach a child how to ride a bike, just like you would teach a child how to hold your hand on the sidewalk and cross the street safely, just like you would teach a child their colors and letters and numbers. There's a way we can teach children how to use the bathroom. And so I want you to think of it as a skill that needs to be taught. And we all need practice when we're learning new skills, right? If today you would like to start playing tennis and you've never played before, you're not going to learn in 1 or 2 sessions. You're going to need practice. So it's important that even if your child who might be 3, 4, 5, 6 years old is still not showing these signs we discussed here on this slide, we can still start the toilet training process. And through this process, your child can learn how to become toilet trained. So again, let's not wait until your child is much older because of course, they grow and they're much bigger and it's much harder to toilet train as they're older. So many children with developmental delays might have some difficulty in these areas. So again, we might be faced with some physical or medical challenges, right? If your child is having a hard time maneuvering their body, sitting on the toilet, this is something you can definitely discuss with your child's pediatrician or a physical therapist. If your child does see one, definitely discuss that with them. And there are some strategies and exercises they can do to strengthen their physical skills. Language, right? We know that a lot of kids that have special needs might have difficulty both understanding language and using language to request the bathroom. So these are some areas that we might have to facilitate a little bit more and use different strategies to help with the language. Dressing and undressing might be a very difficult task, right? It requires your fine motor skills, which are the muscles in your fingers and your hands. It requires a lot of coordination. So again, if your child is working with an occupational therapist or a physical therapist, and even the teachers in the classroom can help with these kinds of tasks so that your child becomes successful and more independent with dressing and undressing. A lot of children might have fears of the bathroom, maybe of the loud flushing sound or the loud hand dryers. So it's important, again, that we look at these things and work on them before we even start toilet training. Again, so if your child is afraid of public restrooms for these reasons, maybe the loud sounds, perhaps we want to kind of practice step by step going into bathrooms and becoming more desensitized to those bathrooms, because it's going to be important that your child learns to tolerate those loud sounds because they kind of happen in most public bathrooms or on airplane bathrooms. And so we want to make sure they are equipped to kind of handle that so that it doesn't stand in the way of toileting. A lot of children with special needs may not have full awareness of their bodies. Again, this is something you can speak to an occupational therapist about, but this awareness can be taught. Okay, so as a teacher, I believe strongly that all of these skills can be taught if we give the child a chance to practice. So it's all about practice and getting a lot of different practice with different people and different environments so that kids can become more aware. And we know that sometimes changes in routines can be hard, right? So either using different toilets, some kids are more comfortable using their toilet at home, but not at school, or they can use it at school, but not in other public restrooms. So these are some things just to think about as you're thinking about toilet training, or perhaps you've started already, and some of these things might be standing in the way. Okay, so just a tip before we begin any toilet training, we do want to make sure that your child just clear it with your pediatrician, right? So again, if you have a very young child and you're just starting out, this is something you might be just talking about with the pediatrician. Even with older children, making sure your child is not dealing with any sort of medical issues that might make toilet training really difficult. So that could be too much or too little urination. That can be any sort of pain when urinating or having a bowel movement, any sort of constipation or diarrhea issues we want to address first before toilet training begins. Because of course, we want to make sure kids are feeling comfortable and this process isn't painful for them. So rule number 1, consult your child's pediatrician. And now we'll talk about kind of how to prepare yourselves. So these are kind of the things we'll talk about next, is preparing yourselves, whether you're a parent or a teacher, because a lot of this is more on the adults, right? I believe kids and children and young people can learn anything, but sometimes parents and teachers have to prepare themselves and make sure they're ready to take on this adventure. We'll talk about how to prepare the child or the student if you're a teacher, some key items to buy to help this process, choosing a reinforcer, because of course some children really need a special reward or special treat to make this more fun, especially at the beginning. So again, if you have a child who's avoiding the bathroom or doesn't enjoy leaving playtime to go use the bathroom, we want to make sure we have something powerful that will help encourage that behavior. And of course, as soon as possible, we can talk about fading that reward out, right? So we don't want to be giving children candy or something special every time they go to the bathroom for years and years. We just use this at the beginning, especially if it's a new skill, to make it more exciting and more fun. And as soon as your child is starting to get used to going to the bathroom, even to try, then we can fade that out, and then we don't have rewards anymore. Okay. Number 5, preparing the environment, just again to minimize the mess. And then lastly, we'll be going through a step-by-step guide for the toilet training. So that will be the bulk of the presentation, but definitely want to talk about preparing ourselves first. Okay, so a lot of this takes a lot of energy from the adults, right? Whether teachers or therapists or parents who are working on this skill. It's important that we kind of relax and be confident about this, and know that this might take some time. And we want to choose the right time, right? So perhaps when your family is on vacation, not the best time, right? Because this is an intensive, systematic process that we're going to talk about. When the child is sick or weaning off a bottle or a pacifier, that might not be the best time. Other things to think about is, are there family members moving in or moving out? Probably not the best time. Is a new baby coming? Maybe we want to wait until after the child settles in. If a baby is coming in the next month or 2, perhaps it's best to wait so that there isn't too much change all at once. But again, you know your children best, and probably can pick a time that would be good. If an upcoming, long weekend is coming up or days off from school, those might be nice times to devote to toilet training, even if it's just a few hours of the day. You don't have to do this all day long over the weekend, but just having a time when you can really focus and devote your time to this. Also, making sure that you've had a conversation with the teachers, with the therapists, and everyone's kind of on the same page to start supporting the child with this new task. So I do recommend that toilet training starts at home first, before kids are expected to wear underwear or to go in school more often. So the reason for that is just at home, you're more able to kind of devote a few hours, let's say on a Saturday, to toilet training. And once we gain some momentum with this, then we can transfer it into the classroom, where again, teachers have a harder time taking one student away from the class, let's say every 20 minutes or every 30 minutes. So if we can gain some momentum at home, and then children can start to follow the same protocol in the classroom, that's ideal. But that's not to say that the teachers in the classroom can't also, your child can also go to the bathroom with the group. So in most pre-K or kindergarten classes, kids are kind of going to the bathroom as a group, or maybe there's bathroom breaks throughout the day and the teachers ask a few students at a time to go try using the bathroom. That's completely fine for your child to join that, because it's important that they observe others and see that this is a skill that everybody's learning. Okay, so preparing your child, of course, if you have siblings at home, if the child has siblings or other family members, it's important that they watch family members go to the bathroom. This, again, can increase some of that interest that you might not see more naturally. Allow your child to see eliminations in the toilet. Again, if you're comfortable with this, if an older brother or sibling goes to the bathroom, having your child kind of see what that looks like and pointing it out, right? So pointing and saying, that's pee-pee in the potty. That can be very powerful, especially for children who are not showing that awareness and are not as interested in what's going on in the bathroom. These are ways to kind of teach them and bring that interest to them. Let them experience flushing, again, just to make sure they're comfortable with it and that it becomes something that is not aversive to them or that they're not scared of. Of course, read books about it, and you can incorporate it into their play, right? So if you have little doll figures, or if your child loves Elmo or Daniel Tiger, let's bring that in. And maybe Daniel Tiger and Elmo can pretend to go to the bathroom on the potty, and you incorporate it into the play. This is something that can happen in the classroom too. So if you're doing this at home, you can let your teachers know that you'd like for that to be exposed more in the classroom. Again, it's all about becoming comfortable with the bathroom and with using the bathroom. And so making it fun and incorporating play are some ways to increase that positivity around using the bathroom. Okay. Other ways to prepare your child, again, even before you start actually formally toilet training, it's important that kids start to learn how to dress and undress on their own, right? So they can help after their bath or after a shower, to learning how to put underwear on and take it off, learning how to put their pants or shorts on and take that off. So these are things you can be practicing every day with your child, even if you're not formally toilet training. We want to think about which language we'd like to use. So for children who are familiar with the words pee-pee, that could be fine. Do you want to use the words potty or I need the bathroom? That's something you might want to discuss as a family, so that, again, when it comes time to toilet training, we're all using consistent language with the child. So contrary to belief, salty snacks actually cause water retention. So what does that mean? When we eat a lot of pretzels or crackers, things that have a lot of salt, it actually causes our body to hold water and doesn't cause our body to eliminate as much. So it might be kind of natural to think that if I give my child a lot of crackers or salty snacks, then it can be something that increases their water intake, but it could actually be the opposite. So something just to think about and keep in mind. Okay, some tips on what to buy. Again, any underwear are fine, but just some tips around what color, right? Because if your child loves Thomas the Train or a character, of course, go ahead and get something that feels fun for them. And maybe they even can go on your phone on Amazon and help pick out their underwear, or go to a store with you and pick out their own underwear to make the process more exciting and more fun. But if your child doesn't really mind, and it's okay if they wear kind of gray or blue underwear, that would be my recommendation. So medium shades of blue and gray, when they get wet, they change color, right? They get dark. And so if your child wears white underwear or black underwear, we might not notice that they're wet during the toilet training process. And so we might be having more frequent accidents. So I just recommend those medium shades of blue and gray, because the second they start getting wet, a grown-up can notice that and help the child get to the bathroom. And hopefully, even if they do have a little bit of an accident, they can finish on the toilet. And that's one more opportunity that they can learn how to go to the bathroom on the toilet. Carter's makes a training pant. So if you just put in Carter's training pants on Amazon, they make an underwear that's a little bit thicker and has more of a lining, just to eliminate, reduce some of the accident cleanup. They don't make any sort of noise. It's not a plastic lining. It's still cotton, but they just feel a little heavier and might hold more water. So just a tip if you are looking for something like that. A lot of smaller children might need a modified toilet seat, right? So something with handles on the side to help with balance. And a step stool can be very helpful. So your child's feet should be resting on the step stool. Okay, so their legs should be at a 90-degree angle. So when they're sitting, their legs are bent and then their feet are not dangling, they're resting on a stool. The reason for this is a lot of children might feel very uncomfortable on the toilet if they're having to use a lot of their muscles and coordination to stay balanced. So if we can make sure that sitting on the toilet or on a small potty, if that's what you choose, if it can be as comfortable as possible and they feel supported, then we'll have less of the behavioral kind of issues that might come up. And also, if your child is balancing themselves, they're actually withholding, right? They're using their muscles to keep themselves balanced, and pee-pee will not be coming out at that point, right? So if anything, it's going to have them withhold instead of relax their body and let anything come out. So it can work against us. So definitely making sure your child feels comfortable. And again, for those of you who have been toilet training, if your child has been eliminating on the toilet a little bit and they seem comfortable without a step stool or a modified seat, that's okay too. This is mainly for younger kids or kids whose feet might not touch the ground. This is kind of one setup, one example. I like this seat because it has the handles on the side for balance. It also has kind of this backing here, so children can feel comfortable leaning back a little bit. It has a cup here, mainly for boys, and then of course a step stool that allows the child to step up 2 levels on their own. So again, we want to think about independence. We don't want to lift children up and put them on the toilet, right? Because now an adult has to do that. As much as possible, even if you have to help your child step up and turn around and sit down, the important thing is they're learning to do it by themselves with some guidance versus relying on an adult to pick them up and put them on the toilet. I do recommend toilet training on the main toilet. And the reason for that is if you use a potty on the floor, you then have to possibly teach the next step, which is transferring that to the toilet. So a lot of children might not easily, transfer that skill over to using a main toilet. So if you want to kind of eliminate one step for yourself, you can just start toilet training directly on the toilet, and of course using modified seats for this. We need a lot of wet wipes, of course, a timer. Again, we'll talk about why, but it's more for the grown-ups in the room to remember to take the child on a consistent basis. You don't have to buy a new timer. You can use your phone, of course, but some families like to have something that's separate from their phone. And think of a highly preferred reinforcer. So something that your child really, really loves. But the trick here is that they don't get access to this except when there's successes on the toilet. So using something like goldfish or pretzels or something they might have at school or at a birthday party might not be the best idea because it will lose its effect, right? So we want to think of something that's highly preferred. It doesn't have to be candy or food, but it is recommended just because sometimes when we use toys or iPad time, it's hard to then take that away, right? So if you give your child a minute of iPad time, if they have a success on the toilet, it's going to be a lot harder to take that away after 1 minute. So that just might not be the best reinforcer for your family. So when we think about these reinforcers, it's important that they're immediate, right? So for a lot of children, we have to reinforce them and praise them right away when the behavior happens that we want to see. So as soon as your child is eliminating in the toilet, it would be important to have the reinforcer ready. And of course, use a lot of social praise as well, right? Good job making pee-pee in the toilet. and maybe we give the reinforcer. We can also have it in a Ziploc bag so the child sees it, but they don't actually get access to it until after they wash their hands, and then you can give it. So that's your choice. I like using food only because they finish on their own. Just like I said, with the iPad or with a toy, it's going to be hard to then take it away and remove it, which might not be fair. So if we give a tiny M&M or a tiny piece of something, then that's kind of, it disappears on its own. Okay, so just some ideas. Of course, drinks or ice cream, 1 spoon of ice cream could be an idea. Again, you know your children best, but we do want to find something that would be highly motivating. Okay, preparing the environment. Of course, we want to roll up any rugs you might have just to eliminate that mess for you to clean up. If you do have small carpets, you might want to roll those up. While your child is toilet training, they're wearing underwear, right? So the accidents are going to happen, and that's okay. But you might want to play with your child on the floor and not allow them to be on the couch just for that hour that you're toilet training, or 2 hours, just again, to make it less messy for you. And again, you might want to remove stuffed animals or books temporarily from the play area just to make sure we're not getting things soiled that are harder to clean up. Okay, so at this point, we are jumping right into the actual step-by-step guide to toilet training. Okay, so imagine that it's a Saturday morning and you are, you're free from 9 to 11 and you're going to devote these 2 hours to toilet training. This is what it would look like. I recommend dressing your child in underwear and a t-shirt only. So we can tuck the t-shirt in or tie a knot in the back, and not wearing pants. The reason for that is, again, if your child starts to have an accident, it's much easier to catch it. And if they're wearing navy blue pants, for example, you might not see that they're wet for a long time, right? Because it's not as visible. So underwear and a t-shirt only, if you're comfortable with that, that would be my recommendation. And you're going to set your timer for a predetermined amount of time. I like to start with 25 minutes. This is, again, for first-time students who are being toilet trained. This is a brand new skill. They've never done this before. 25 minutes might be just a nice time to start. And then we can adjust if the child is having too many accidents, we might bring it down. You're going to allow your child to play with toys. And the most important piece is encouraging a lot of drinking. Okay, so you might have your water bottle next to them and you're drinking along with them and you're reminding them to continue to drink. Of course, things like eating fruit or popsicles can be helpful too. The goal here is that in that 2 hours, we would like to have some successes, right? And so we're going to manipulate the situation a little bit and have your child drink more water than maybe usual. The goal is that we catch those successes and we provide a lot of reinforcement, and that's where the learning happens. Okay. So you're playing with your child, you're drinking a lot of water, you're constantly encourage them to drink. Again, if your child prefers juice, you might want to water that down, because it's important that they are drinking a lot so that we can get more successes. And the adult is watching intensely for the signs that they need to eliminate, right? So you're right there with them. This might not be a time that we take phone calls or that we do other things. You really want to devote this time. And that's why I recommend starting small and being successful with it. So even if 1 hour on the weekend or the 1 hour that your child comes home from school, you want to devote to toilet training before bath time and dinner time, you can slowly increase that over time. But start small so that everybody involved feels successful, because this can be a very hard process, right? And it's very intense. Okay. So when the timer goes off, right? So you're playing with your child, 25 minutes pass and the timer goes off. This piece is the most important. you want to prompt your child to request the bathroom. So it doesn't sound like this. Okay, Oliver, it's time to use the potty, and we guide him to the potty, because that was me telling my child. It's important that we prompt our children to request. And the reason for that is because the requesting piece, learning to ask for the bathroom on my own, is often the last skill to be developed. A lot of children will learn to hold their bowel movements and pee until they get to a toilet. They'll learn to only eliminate in the bathroom and not have accidents, but they still don't request the bathroom. And I don't think kids get enough practice with this, because they're often told when to go to the bathroom. And so that can create dependence on an adult. So if your child is using verbal language, again, you can decide. They can say pee-pee, they can say I need the potty, they can say I need the bathroom. If your child is using picture symbols or a device, they can request, right? So prompt them to click on the toileting button to request bathroom. This is the sign for toilet. So it's the letter T and a wiggle, but you can modify that and just do this. So that's the American Sign Language sign for toilet. So you can prompt your child to request the bathroom. And again, if your child is using single words, we can use pee-pee or potty. And so the goal is you prompt your child to request, they repeat after you, and then you guide them to the bathroom. So they start to connect that word with the action of going to the bathroom. So you turn off the timer, you guide your child to go to the bathroom. And again, we're helping our child to pull down their underwear and sit on the toilet. We're not doing it for them, right? To increase that independence. If you find that your child's having a hard time sitting, you can read a book to them or engage in some conversation or singing or use a timer to help them sit. I really don't recommend sitting more than 15 seconds. A lot of families tell me they kind of encourage or force their child to sit for 5 minutes. And that's when we start to get behavioral issues, because that's very aversive. So if your child, again, you're going to be doing this every 25 minutes. So we don't want to take them away from their favorite activity, and now they have to sit for 5 minutes. That would be too much, and we're going to lose them very quickly. So the goal is we sit for 15 seconds. If nothing comes out, we get up, wash our hands, and try again later. Of course, if you know your child might have a bowel movement, you'll have them sit longer. Okay, so that's an exception. But I really recommend just 10 to 15 seconds, not more. The goal is that we learn to go to the bathroom, sit down, do our thing, and get up, wash our hands, and leave, right? This is not a place to kind of hang out all day. And so reading, playing with toys while on the toilet, it's not recommended, but again, if it helps your child stay seated, I would recommend it. Again, at the beginning, we need to make it fun and comfortable. And so if that will add to making it fun and comfortable for your child, absolutely go with it, right? Just think about how to fade it back over time. What happens if there's a success, right? We want to throw a party, make it a big deal, be very specific, right? So great job making pee-pee on the potty, right? We're not just high five and good job, but be very specific as to what your child did that was so amazing, right? Because they can learn from that. And that's when we repeat behavior, when we know what we're being rewarded for. And then, of course, we want to immediately give the reinforcer, whether that's right after they wash their hands or right before, that's up to you. And we reset the timer and we start again. So we go back to playing, we set the timer for 25 minutes, and we go through this process again. Okay, thinking about prevention. So while your child is playing, wearing underwear, you can offer reminders, right? Sometimes I'll put visuals on the floor, right? That reminds the parent to point to the visual and say, remember, if you have pee-pee, we go to the potty. That can also help cue your child. So you could put a picture of a toilet or a picture of your child sitting on the toilet, and use that as a visual cue and remind them, You know, when you have pee-pee, you tell me, or you go straight to the potty. Okay. If your child starts to do what they call the pee-pee dance, right? You notice that they're wiggly or that it's very obvious they have to pee and the timer has not gone off, I would prompt them to go. Okay, so let's say you've done 3 rounds of the 25 minutes and your child has not eliminated, right? Now we're kind of going almost into an hour. And you start to see them wiggle or do a dance, you definitely want to prompt them to say, I need the bathroom, and go eliminate. What to do when there's an accident. Okay, so let's say the child is playing and all of a sudden you start to notice their underwear getting wet. Most important, okay, and this takes a lot of self-regulation on our part, right? Remain calm. It's very common that our big reaction might cause a child to become scared of this whole process. So remain calm and help your child get to the toilet as quickly as possible. And if you need to kind of scoop them up and put them on the toilet, that's okay. The main goal here is that they finish on the toilet, right? It's still called an accident, but it's important that the child practices going in the toilet. And so this is one more opportunity that your child could go in the toilet and you can point and say, that's pee-pee in the potty. Okay, we're not giving the reinforcer, the special treat, but it's still a learning opportunity. And we want to make sure we're being very neutral, right? You're not happy about the accident, but you're not upset and angry about it. Okay, so we don't want to do any sort of punishment, timeout, reprimand, scolding. It's really important that we keep this process very positive. If not, we're going to lose the child and then toilet training will go out the window. Okay, and then we might have a lot more behavioral issues versus actually toilet training. So we might say something very neutral like pee-pee goes in the potty, let's try again later, or you can try again next time. Okay, so it's a very neutral and calm tone of voice. We're not implementing any sort of consequence or punishment. After an accident, your child can help you kind of take off their underwear and put on a new pair and clean up, clean themselves up. I wouldn't have the child clean up the accident on the floor. I think, again, that can become punitive and work against us. And the other thing is if a child has a bowel movement in their underwear, we want to be careful that we don't dump it into the toilet in front of them. That might be something you do to make cleanup much easier and be able to flush it. But we don't want the message to be that you go to the bathroom in underwear and then mommy and daddy take care of it. Okay, so be careful that we don't do that in front of the child. Because that might backfire. We reset the timer and then we start again. Okay. I'm just going to talk about a few tips and resources for the next 10 minutes, and then we can start to take questions around 1 o'clock. So after an accident, sorry, one second. If you're interested, I just wanted to show a sample of a toileting data sheet. As an ABA therapist, as you know, I'm big on data, but this doesn't have to be complicated. This is just one idea, but this can be very helpful to kind of keep track of how your child is doing. So this data sheet has a key at the top. As you can see, UT stands for urination on toilet. So if the child pees in the toilet, we can circle UT. If the child has an accident, a urine accident, we can circle UA. Bowel movement on the toilet is BM. Bowel movement accident is BA. If nothing happened, you can circle O for no elimination. And usually that means dry pants as well. So you could just circle no, O for no elimination if nothing happened. So let's say your child's Oliver and on 6/22 we put the date. You don't have to put the time if you have the time interval right there. So I wrote 25 minutes, so now I know every 25 minutes when I take Oliver to the bathroom, I'm going to record what happened. The only reason this is helpful is because it helps us remember what happened last Saturday, right? Because it's really hard to remember how many accidents did he have? How many successes did he have? And so this is a data sheet that could just help you record. When I work with families at home, I'll tape one of these in the bathroom with a pencil right next to it. Again, just to help the adults quickly record what happened before we go back and play. And if you do have a home ABA team or teachers in the classroom that are helping you with toileting, this can be a great way to see how things are happening at home versus at school, to kind of compare if Oliver is making progress in both settings. If you do have a home ABA team, please engage them in this process so that they can help with the data collection part and also tracking the data. So when they're not there, if you're taking data, they can look at it and see how Oliver's doing. So how we use this is, let's say Oliver has again, an accident. We circle UA. Let's say the next time the timer goes off, Oliver has a urination in the toilet. That's a success. We circle it. The next time the timer goes off, the next 25-minute interval, there's an accident, a bowel accident, we circle BA. So again, over time, you can start to see what's happening. And then the next time you do toilet training, you put the date and you keep going. Again, this could just be when you took an hour on a Tuesday to do it, and then the next day, if you take an hour to toilet train, you would just keep taking data. Another great piece about taking data is, how do we know when we can bump up this time interval, right? So we're taking Oliver every 25 minutes, but of course, at some point, we want to move up to 30 minutes or 35 minutes. So the key here is, if there's 3 days, 3 consecutive days of 0 accidents, you can increase the time by 5 or 10 minutes. Okay, so what does that look like? On 6/22, let's say he had urination on toilet, success, 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 right? So that's day 1. The next day, if your data sheet has all successes, no accidents, that's day 2. The third day, if your child had all successes, no accidents, the 4th day, you can bring up the interval to 30 minutes or 35 minutes. And then you follow the same protocol. And so we're inching our way up to the point where your child is holding and able to hold and has learned to kind of withhold until they get to a bathroom for up to an hour, right? And then you can feel more confident maybe taking your child for a walk around the block in underwear, and then eventually to the park in underwear and back home for 45 minutes. So that's how we slowly inch our way into wearing underwear for longer and longer parts of the day. Okay, but at the beginning, we want to start very small and successful. We talked about different ways to request. Again, it can be any verbal language. It can be the sign for potty. Here are some websites to find kind of an image, or off Google Images, you can find like a little cartoon picture, or you can take a picture of your child sitting on the potty if you feel like that might resonate a little bit more with them. You can even hang those pictures in the house so that when the child is playing, or if they're in their bedroom or the living room, there's always a visual nearby that you can point to and remind them. When you need pee-pee, you can tell me, or you can go by yourself, right? So even if your child's not wearing underwear and you're not formally toilet training, you can still remind them to go even when they're wearing their pull-up, just so we can continue that consistent language. Visuals are very, very helpful, especially I would argue that all people benefit from visuals. Children, adults, all of us use some sort of visual strategy to help us remember things, right? So we write notes in our phone, we write notes on a Post-it, we make a grocery list on a piece of paper or in our phone. Those are all visual strategies. And so for young children, it might look more like pictures, but it's the same strategy. For those of you who have children at home and your child is in school, you can definitely ask teachers for help with this, right? Can they share the same visual schedule they might be using in the bathroom at school? And can they make a copy to send home for you? It might look something like this with a few steps. It might be more complicated with more steps, or you can cut out the pictures that make sense for your child, right? For young children, we're not expecting them to wipe, right? So we can skip that maybe until the child is a little bit older, 6, 7, 8. We could start to teach that skill. But at the beginning, it's more just about undressing, sitting, eliminating, getting up, washing hands. Autism Little Learners is a great website. They also have a Facebook page for you to follow, as well as a podcast. So I love that website. It's very visual. Everything is pictures. And so you can find pictures for really anything, but these are toilet training visuals that they made. So I did not create this. So I'm showing you a sample, but they have one that has a girl represented. They have one with a boy represented. So different variations for you to have. And again, you can cut them out and use the visuals that make sense for your child. So these are just really nice and clear. And you can create a visual schedule and put it on the wall right next to the toilet or right across from the child if they're sitting on the toilet and there's a wall in front of them, because now you can point to the pictures. Okay, it's time to take our pants down. You point and you help them. Okay, time to take underwear down. Okay, now sit on the toilet like him and have your child imitate the picture. You could also take pictures of your child doing these different things. So again, you know your child best. If you feel that they might enjoy or be more motivated to see themselves in the photos, that's a great way to do that, is take pictures of your child engaging in each of these steps. Okay. Another great resource is thiskidsfuture.com. They have a great social story about potty training. So again, Ariana Medina created this one. I'm happy to send out the PDF copy when I send these slides. But this is the front cover, but it's a whole book with really clear and neat visuals. Again, not too many pictures on the page, just one picture, and each page kind of goes through the process of toileting. This is another one, how to wipe your butt. So again, for those of you who are working on this skill with maybe older children, or your child has gotten all the steps of toilet training, but now we're working just on the wiping, this is a great social story that I'll send out as well. Again, it's by the same person, and this is one sample of the page in the book, but it's multiple pages long. And again, it's simple. The words are simple. You can, of course, use the pictures and just use your own language if your child might not be able to handle too many sentences. If you just want to kind of show the pictures, they can be very powerful. And again, when we see things, we're more able to learn and remember the information. So visuals are very powerful because they help us retain information. Okay, and again, I would argue that for any child, not just children with special needs. And even myself, I need to see something so I can remember it. When you just tell me auditorily, it doesn't stick as much. Okay, so those are some ideas and I'll send them out. Another way to use visuals is to explain to your child, when we make pee-pee in the potty, we get, and it could be anything, right? It could be a chocolate chip, it could be a lollipop, it could be your favorite song or video, one YouTube video. You can put a picture there. And so this is a visual I might create and laminate and put on the wall in the bathroom as well. This can happen at school or at home. And I think the consistency is important. So of course, if your school can't give candy or treats for toileting, maybe they can think of a different reinforcer, but the actual visual can be consistent. Just a few more slides before we take questions. This is something I created for a child who loves to make her own choices. So her parents agreed that when there was a success in the toilet, she could get one M&M, one piece of chocolate, or one gummy bear. She loved Elmo, so we put a little picture of Elmo, again, just to make it more fun. And so she got to pick which reinforcer she got, right? So I left a piece of Velcro here, and when she eliminated in the toilet, part of the fun was that she got to pick her own treat. And so she would take gummy bears off and put them on to let us know that's what she wanted. So this child was minimally verbal, so she could use single words to communicate. But sometimes when she got excited or upset, it was hard for her to use her words. So the visuals were really helpful, so she could let us know right away, and we can give her the reinforcer right away. So just making her own choice was actually part of the fun for her. So just something to think about. And again, gummy bears might be great for the first 2 weeks, and then they start to lose their effect. So we want to think about, is this not as effective anymore? Maybe I have to take out something more exciting for toilet training. Okay, so I mentioned some of these already. For boys, again, as a family, you can decide if you want to teach your child how to urinate standing versus sitting. I recommend, if it's a young child and you're just starting out, to have them sit, because that way whatever comes out, we can reinforce, right? And then later on, once they're urinating on the toilet more consistently, you can have the child's brother or dad or grandfather, anyone who's in the home that can model the standing. Maybe that child can also watch other friends at school do that, stand up to pee, and then we can teach that second. So for a lot of kids, they need to learn how to aim into the toilet. So you could have fun with it again and put a little Fruit Loop or something silly in the toilet to teach them to aim. Of course, somebody thought of this and is making money off of it. There's these toilet time targets. So they're little sponge animals. I don't know if you remember when we were younger, we had these little animals that came in a little plastic pill. And when you put it in the toilet, it grows and it becomes a fun animal, and they're flushable. So if you want to purchase something like that, but again, a Cheerio or a Fruit Loop works great too, because it's something the child can aim for. They do make cool alert pull-ups, again, for those children who are not really aware when they're soiled in their pull-up. Most children probably don't notice because there's so much padding and it's absorbing the liquid. This kind of has a little bit of a material that turns cold when the diaper is soiled. Again, for those kids who might be what we call kind of undersensitive and aren't feeling things at a heightened state, that might be something you use. I added just some websites here for printable materials online for those visuals, sticker charts if you're interested. I'm not really into them because I think they're just hard to maintain. I'd rather give the child a reinforcer immediately. Again, you might think about, for older kids or for kids who can wait for reinforcement, we might start to say, okay, if you're dry all day and you have no accidents, then you can have ice cream at the end of the day. But that's a hard concept for many young children. They kind of need the reinforcer to happen right away. There's an online video from Crawford the Cat, Sesame Street, Potty Time with Elmo. There's a Daniel Tiger one that most of you probably know about. So again, there's a lot of great apps and books. Here are some of my favorites because the visuals are so clear. So this is the story, the social story I'm going to be sending, this first one. But these books also have just really great visuals and they're very clear. So I like these books. Here are some books for parents if you're interested. I also wrote an article for Special Parent magazine many years ago. This workshop is basically based on the article. So the article is a 2-page step-by-step guide to toilet training. I'm happy to share that as well, but it's basically this exact presentation. But if you wanted to kind of read it in a 2-page article, I can send that out. Some apps that can be fun. And some other seat options. So I like this one because it clicks on to your toilet seat at home. So it clicks on top and the hole in the middle is smaller. So for those kids who are younger or smaller, it increases that surface area. So your child has more area to sit on. These are just some fun toys a parent shared with me to illustrate. You know, a lot of kids do have some fear around pooping, around bowel movements. And so this might create more fun and less fear around this topic. So just some ideas. And that's it for resources. I'm happy, again, to take any questions at this point. Again, if your child has started toilet training or you are just beginning, happy to answer. If you can just give me an idea of their age, that would be helpful, just so I have some background information.
Thank you, Nadine. This has been a tremendous support. You can't even possibly imagine how, or you probably can't imagine how grateful we are, because we have so many varying levels of children that need support and parents that are, you know, we're out here needing a life raft. So thank you for throwing us some support so that we can float our way through this thing. What I do want to do briefly before we jump into questions is ask and check in with our interpreters. Spanish, Mandarin, and Bangla. Do any of you have a question on your line?
This is a Spanish interpreter. I don't have any questions on. Oh, yes, there is one question. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Sí, dígame.
This is the Mandarin interpreter. No questions on the Mandarin line.
Okay, Spanish, you did say you do have one question on the Spanish line. And for Bangla, while we wait, do we have a question on the Bangla line?
No response yet.
Okay.
This is a Spanish interpreter. The person on the Spanish line is asking for the slides, if they would be able to get the slides.
Yes, we're going to send out all of the slides to everyone that is here today, the people that have registered who may not have been able to come, and we will also make it available on our website if possible. Nadine, you have to let me know if that's possible. Okay, we'll do that as well. The next part of this, guys, we want to go ahead and jump into the chat. So I'm going to read off a couple of the questions that are in the chat, but after those, feel free to raise your hand to ask your questions. Nadine, the first question that I see is, my child is 6, and when I put him on the toilet, he holds up both poo and pee. I'll have him sit for 5 minutes, but as soon as I get him dressed, he lets everything out. How do I deal with that?
Yes, so this is a common one. So again, this just kind of tells us that the act of sitting and eliminating is still very new. It could be a little bit scary. And so kids end up withholding and waiting. And then of course, the second the comfortable diaper or pull-up is back, they feel more comfortable eliminating. So I highly recommend, again, even though you probably have been doing toilet training for a while, is to kind of do this more intensive approach. Again, even if it's an hour a day, 2 hours a day, as much as possible on the weekdays, as much as possible on the weekends, so we can catch the successes. And again, making sure you're giving your child a lot of water during those times that they're wearing underwear, so that, and again, some kids can hold it for an hour, hour and a half. Those are my superhero children that have muscles of steel and can really withhold for a long, long time. So if possible, continue the 25 minutes or 30 minutes, taking them eventually they're going to have to let it out. But the goal is that you catch it, and that happens on the toilet so that you can reinforce them.
Thank you. The next question I see is, when should we make the switch or try training underwear instead of pull-ups?
And that's from me. My daughter is 4.
Okay. Quick answer today. I really strongly believe in engaging in this process directly in underwear. And the reason for that is, children can't feel as much when they're wearing the pull-up. And so in underwear, they're going to feel the wetness, and that will teach awareness, right? That will teach awareness. And for most kids, that's not a fun feeling. So then they want to avoid it. They don't want to have accidents because they don't like that feeling. There are kids on the flip side that don't mind being wet for half an hour. They'll sit in a wet diaper or even underwear, and they're okay with that. But even for those children, every time they have an accident, making sure we point and have them look and watch what's happening, that's an important learning moment. I think accidents are actually wonderful because they teach us things, right? So they're not a bad thing. I wouldn't be scared of accidents. It's a moment for your child to look down and realize something's happening. A lot of kids have never done that because they're always wearing a diaper. So they've never had the chance to even see that happening. So you can go ahead and switch to underwear again for controlled periods at home first, right? We're not just going to put her in underwear for the whole day. That would be throwing her in the deep end. So for small controlled periods of day where you can monitor and help her avoid accidents, and then as soon as she's holding it for 45 minutes, an hour, you can try going on a walk around the block in underwear. Praise her when you come back and she's dry. Of course, have her go right before you leave and go right after you come back home. And that's how we slowly help children learn to kind of wear underwear and learn to wait for a bathroom. Yeah.
Thank you. That's so helpful. Thank you so much.
Of course.
The next question is from Tiffany Haynes. It says, so if I potty train my son for 2 hours on a Saturday or Sunday, after that's over, should I just put him back in pull-ups? Not sure how to go on for the remainder of the day. What about during the school week, evening, and after school?
So yes, at the beginning, we're going to start small, and then they go back in pull-ups, and then slowly increase that time. So that period, it might be a few weeks where your child is wearing underwear sometimes and pull-ups sometimes. That can be confusing. But we don't want to just go straight to underwear all day long because we all know what's going to happen, right? Too many accidents and unsuccessful moments. But we also, so the goal is to eventually wear underwear all day. But what we want to do is kind of creep our way up there in baby steps. So there might be a 2 or 3 or even a month long period where your child is wearing pull-ups most of the time and wearing underwear a few hours of the day or weekends. Your goal is to stretch that out over time. So if you do have longer and longer periods in the evenings or on the weekends, then have them wear underwear longer than that.
Okay. And what about bedtime?
Okay. We didn't even get to bedtime. That can be a 1-hour workshop, but
That's fine. Yeah.
bedtime, nighttime training will come when daytime training happens. So
Got it.
don't worry too much about nighttime, because once our bodies learn how to withhold and eliminate when we want to eliminate and not just kind of free flow, the children naturally learn to hold it overnight. There are some exceptions, right? There are some kiddos who are fully daytime trained, but are still having accidents at night. So then we might implement something where you either wake them up at 11 p.m. to go one more time and then get back to sleep, or maybe we put a small potty near their bed and then we slowly move the potty towards the bathroom only for nighttime. So those are exceptions, but majority of kids, once they are daytime trained, and again, let's not forget the requesting piece, right? So not just that they're going when adults tell them to go, but they're also initiating and they're going when they need to go on their own. We'll start to see them waking up with nighttime diapers that are dry. So keep the nighttime diaper, even though your child is still kind of working on daytime training.
Okay. Thank you so much. This is really helpful. Thank you.
Glad to hear, of course.
Hey, Nadine. Sorry, guys. I'm in a school picking up my child, so multitasking. Melissa Wright says he's doing well at school on a schedule, but when he gets home and I try to follow the schedule, he does that they take the kids to the bathroom every hour. And then someone says how to teach children to use toilet paper to clean. Do you have any options about how to teach children to use toilet paper?
Yeah, so this social story that I mentioned, this is a story. It's kind of like a teaching story. So I will send that with the resources. This is just one page of the book, but it's a whole book to teach wiping. And again, this is kind of a much harder skill. So if your child is anywhere from 3 to 6, I wouldn't worry too much about it yet. But then older kids and even teenagers or young adults can kind of benefit even from these visuals. You might want to take this story as an idea and maybe make your own that's based off of it, that's more specific for your child, or maybe your teacher can help do that. For the other question about school, I'd be curious what they're doing at school, because perhaps there's a strategy that hasn't been communicated to you at home. So it sounds like they take the kids every hour, but are they also reminding your child in that hour? Are they also offering opportunities to go for kids who need to go, less than an hour later? There's a reason why he's kind of learned that he's holding it in school and he's staying dry, and we want to transfer that to home. So I'm sorry I can't directly answer that, but I think if you can ask the teacher a little bit more about exactly what they're doing, maybe they're using specific visuals that they could make for you at home. It sounds like you're trying to really copy what they're doing, which is a great thing. But I wonder if there's some strategies that they're doing that's helping him stay, because of course he's busy at school playing, so or doing work. So I can imagine that if he's staying dry for those hours and having successes, then he's really learning how to become toilet trained. So maybe speak more to the teacher.
All right, the next question was Letitia Winslow. She said her question was earlier in the chat. I'm trying to see where it's at. I don't see it.
Oh, yes, I see it. Any tips for nighttime? Is that your question?
Letitia Winslow?
Yeah, I'll read it out loud. Any tips for
Yes.
nighttime? Okay.
Can you hear me? Yes. I was wondering, like my daughter, she's good in the daytime, but at night she has problems. It's like, also she's a withholder. She doesn't want to poo at night, especially, and she's very constipated. So that's probably also into it also.
Yes, I see you give Miralax, but even then, if she's very constipated, she doesn't want to poop. So yes, this is where kind of the medical issues creep in. And if that's what's happening, we kind of want to put toilet training a little bit on hold until we figure that out, right? Because that's of course going to interfere. So perhaps another visit to the pediatrician or a phone call. Sometimes Miralax is tricky. We have to kind of play around with the dose to find the dose that works for each person, because every child is a different weight, and they absorb it differently. So in order to make sure that she's going regularly and not getting stuck, she might need like a little bit more or a little bit less of something. And also speaking to your pediatrician about other more natural things like prunes or prune juice or other foods that you might be able to sneak more into her diet to help her go. Because if kids experience pain, I think all of us, if we experience pain with going, it's going to make the whole process very aversive. And so she might be avoiding that because it either hurts or it's very uncomfortable. And making sure she's drinking a lot of water. I know you know this, but I'm wondering if throughout the day at school, some kids don't drink as much because at home, maybe parents remind them more often. At school, they could go a long time without water. See if the teachers can make sure she's getting multiple cups of water throughout the day to help with that.
The next two questions is from is Lena, I think, Lou. How to teach children use toilet paper to clean. They want to know how to teach children how to use toilet paper to clean, they said.
Yeah, so this is the book that I'll help send. I love it because it's so visual and the pictures are great. But the quick answer is we're going to have to probably teach how to wipe, literally, using physical hand over hand prompting at the beginning to really teach children the process. But this book that I'll send out explains, you can also ask your child to kind of count the toilet paper pieces. A lot of kids will grab the whole roll and they'll keep pulling. Some kids might only take one piece of toilet paper. So you might want to give your child a certain number. So like 5 sheets of toilet paper or 4 sheets, we take it off. And so teaching it in a very step-by-step way. And this book that I'll send can help with that.
I don't know if you answered this already, but Letitia Winslow has said, any tips on poo withholding?
Withholding. Okay, same thing. Definitely speak to your pediatrician about ways, and a lot of pediatricians might recommend Miralax or something similar to help. But this is a very common problem with all kinds of children. And it's a lot of times kids are very scared of bowel movements, right? They've urinated multiple times in the toilet. Something about the bowel movements ends up being very scary and they don't want to kind of let go. A psychologist I spoke to once mentioned that some kids, because they don't understand what a bowel movement is, they're scared that it's a part of their body that's falling out, right? Because they don't really understand what poop is all about. So definitely reading any sort of books about our body and how when we eat, sometimes we eat too much and some of that has to come out in the toilet. Just like when we drink too much, some of that has to come out in the toilet. Just explaining it to your child in a very basic way that meets their developmental level, that can help kind of take away some of that anxiety around it. And then when your child is withholding, if you already know that your child usually has a bowel movement between 4 and 6 p.m. every day in the evening, or if you kind of have an idea, you can implement this toilet training just in that window of time. So again, a lot of water to make sure the bowel movement is comfortable. Take them every 20, 25 minutes, 30 minutes to go try. And in this case, you might want to have them sit for a couple minutes, right? So to try, and if nothing happens, you go back to playing and we try again. And that bowel movement is probably coming because a lot of kids are very regular. And so again, the goal is to catch it and to be able to reinforce. But a lot of children, I had this experience with both my kids who are now 10 and 7, where they withheld for many, many days. And it was very unsettling as a parent. But I've spoken to many pediatricians, and withholding up to a week and a half to 2 weeks is still okay. So don't be too scared about it, but of course, consult your pediatrician to get more advice.
All right, the same parent, Letitia Winslow, had told you thanks. And then there's one more question that was just placed in the chat. This parent says, my child wears pull-ups while sleeping. How can I reduce that?
Okay. I'm assuming your child wears underwear during the day, but just pull-ups for bedtime. Is that accurate?
I wanted to jump in, Nadine, for a second. Sorry if it's the wrong time. I'm multitasking, couldn't quite hear what they just said, but I wanted to say something for the parents who need assistance additionally with what you're talking about. ABA is covered under Medicaid. So if you do need assistance with from a person that does ABA for potty training, if it's a higher level of assistance you need, you can go through your care manager or call these agencies to see what level of support you can get. And they will give it to you on the weekends, on the weekday, and things of that nature. And then also, if you are a visual person outside of what we will send you that Nadine gave us, your child also has a Canva, CANVA account, and that comes for free with the education department. And there are a lot of visuals there that you can also tap into outside of what we will send you from Nadine. And I was going to say a part about being able to get pull-ups as a prescription through your doctors, but listening to Nadine, if you don't have to do that, underwear. So I don't want to promote what we should not be using, but I did want to pull those two items in. This says we do not have a care manager now. How do we get one? What I would say, I'm going to put ACA into the chat. Give me a second to pull that link up. And then you can walk through intake with them, and they can take you through the procedure of going through OPWDD to get the Medicaid waiver. And that would be a little bit easier because they'll hold your hand versus you calling OPWDD and getting a little bit confused in it.
All right, and back to the other parent. They had added to the question in the chat. They said that their child will pull-ups all the time, even though she originally said that the child wills pull-ups while sleeping. How can I reduce that?
Yeah, so again, focus first on daytime. Okay, so your child can continue to wear pull-ups for naps if they nap and for nighttime. But for daytime, when they're awake and more kind of in tune with their body, again, try to have them wear underwear, even if it's at the beginning for 30 minutes, just to get used to wearing them. And then the next day, try an hour, the next day, try 2 hours, and slowly increase the time. So children who wear pull-ups all the time, wearing underwear is going to be a totally different experience. Okay, so if your child is resisting wearing underwear, again, make it fun, make a song out of it. Even if they wear it for 30 seconds, everybody can throw a party and clap and say yay for the child, and make it fun and exciting so that putting on something new is not so threatening. I know a lot of children, when you kind of having them wear something different or wear something new that they haven't worn before, there can be some resistance. So again, think of it in small steps. Just have them wear underwear during the day for small periods of time, and then put the pull-up back on. And then each time you're going to increase that slowly.
All right, I believe that was all the questions we had in the chat. Let me just double check.
Let's double check with our interpreters too. Do we have, thank you, Andrea, for helping me out in the midst of this. Christian says hello. Can we check in with Mandarin, Spanish, and Bangla one more time to see if we have any additional questions?
There's no more question.
No question in Spanish.
No question in Bangla as well.
No question
no
in Mandarin.
question. Okay, perfect. Well, no questions doesn't mean you won't always have them later. Nadine is going to share. Nadine's going to share the PDFs. We're going to make sure to send that out. Nadine, I'm going to give you the information of everyone who registered, because I know they will want to touch base with you.
Okay.
As we are moving through this is part of our parent support group, guys. So if you want to continue with the parent support group, please let us know. There are a few things that will be coming up before I circle back to this. Our calendar meeting is at 6 p.m. on November 20th. We have a CUNY program with schools for new programs for children with our disabilities going to college. If you want to know about those programs, 11/21 at 1 p.m. And then on 11/11, we are having co-parenting without conflict. These things you can see on our website at ccd75.org. And we wanted to make sure that you guys know that you are our biggest responsibility. And that's why we're here, to help you out, to give you information, and to be advisory as well as advocate for you. Once again, Nadine, we really appreciate you. This topic has been challenging, to say the least, and many parents have been asking for it. So with that being said, I don't want to take too much more of your time. Do you have any final words that you'd like to give?
I just want to say thank you for this opportunity. If anyone has further questions, my email is here. I'm happy to continue to answer if you think of it later. And I will be sending you the resources right now so that you can have that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much as well. Guys, everyone have an amazing day on purpose. And remember, you're not alone. This information will be there for you shortly, and it will be online later on this afternoon. So at 1:29 p.m., we will release our interpreters. And thank you guys so much and have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.